Getting the right setup for your guitar's bridge is a key element to getting your guitar to play properly. So in this video, I've enlisted my favourite guitar repairman, Phill Orme from Doghouse Guitar Repairs, to show you how to set up the bridge on your electric guitar. He's going to go through how to set up the action, how to set the radius of the strings, and all the things like that, and also some information on setting up tremolos too. So without further ado, let's go and see Phill.
Okay, so we're just going to take the strings off the guitar, and I thought it was important actually to make a note of this. Anybody that's got a float and tremolo system, so that means it's not right down against the body. If it's right down against the body, it's not going to move when he goes backwards. This one has got some movement backwards as well as forwards. Some people have these like screwed right down the spring tension, so it's right against the body.
You adjust that in the back of the guitar, don't you?
They do, but if it's like this, and as soon as you start taking the strings off, that's going to sit back against the body.
Yeah.
And then when you put the new strings on, you'll be tuning one string, the other goes flat, and you'll be there all day.
Yeah.
Until you get right. And a lot of people. So there's a trick here with these post-it notes, you know, the stuff you write your notes on the stick on the fridge.
Yeah.
So what you do is just pick an amount, bring it forward. Now it's not gripped it yet. A few more. That's kind of got it. Maybe a couple more. You can hear it change in tone. It's lower that, so I'm going to take a couple back. And basically, you just want to do it so. Maybe one more. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave them there. Now, when I take the strings off, that can't go down to the body.
Yeah, and it won't damage the paintwork and all the...
When I put the new strings on, as you tune it up to pitch, once it gets to pitch, that'll fall out because it'll be in the playing position and it'll be in tune and it'll be still floating. The problem we've got at the minute is these are 9 to 42s. We're putting 10 to 46s on, so that's not going to make a scrap of difference now because we're actually going to have to change the strings, the string and the spring tension. But that's obviously just a tip. I remember me saying before about these were all miles too low in the centre.
Yeah.
Now, when we set it up with the strings, if it's too low and you put the strings on, then you try and crank them up. It's really difficult. You're fighting against the screw threads of the saddle adjustment screws. So it's best to have it too high, and then we'll be going down all the time, so there's no tension. Is it 1.5? Yeah, there you go. It's 1.5 mil on the Harley Benton. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to. I don't know if you notice this is one of the other little key tricks, but it's really hard with an Allen key because of this. It gets in the way. So I usually cut them off there, and at the end of a drumstick. Thank you to all the drummers I work with who break sticks and give me them, because I use these bits all the time for various handles for other tools, and they're basically just super glue in, and that way you can just roll it around your fingers. It's a lot easier to use. So as you can see, I'm just taking them all up higher than they need to be. I know this is a 10-inch radius, so I could kind of just rough it in. So if I can get one of the radius tools, so this is there's a 10-inch radius. So I can see, oops, that one needs going up. It's a bit high in the middle now, so I'm going to take the outsides up a tiny bit. I'm just kind of getting it there or thereabouts. You know, just this at this stage, it's not crucial. And remember, I've reset the neck, so everything's going to need to be higher anyway initially, so I want to make sure I'm always going down rather than up with the string tension on, because that's going to that could strip the threads on these. Yeah, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
So that's roughly 10. Okay, so that oil's been on now for a minute, so I'm just going to take that rag now and I'm just going to clean the rest of it off. Anything that's sort of left sitting on top. Okay, I'm just going to get it roughly in tune now. So I use this thing. It's a Peterson strobe tuner. The reason I use these is because they're accurate to 1/1000th of a semitone. So it's really accurate for doing intonation. But obviously any sort of tuner, you know, you can use your clip-on tuners, pedal tuners on pedal boards. You can use the tune that's on your amp or
on your phone.
Phone apps, you know, all this sort of thing. Now the other thing you can do at this point, once it's roughed in, see how everything's going flat again. This is because this is now pulling up, and you're going to have miles too much adjustment now here because we've got a heavier gauge of strings on, which we'll adjust in a minute. is I'm going to increase the spring tension so this stays flat on the body while I get everything in tune. And then we can set the radius, we can set everything else, and then we can get the thing to, because it's like trying to chase your tail all the times. You set up this, and then we've got to change the radius, then we're going to change the spring tension, that's going to change this, so we'll just end up doing that all day. So I'm going to screw these in a few turns. Again, evenly, don't always have the same gap. And all I want it is so the tremolo is just, the back of the tremolo is hard up against the body, just while we set everything else up. It's all going to change again in a minute, but you know, because we've changed string gauge, see that's now pushed hard back against the body, which is great. It means I can get the tuning, get the radius, get the all that sort of thing. I can get that sorted. Then we can go back to setting the trem up properly, and you're not kind of chasing your tail. And then I'm just going to give these a stretch. So I'm going to hold them. I'm just going to pull the string and then tune it. It's gone flat again. Get it back to E. Give it a stretch. It's gone flat again. Get to E. Give it a stretch. And now it's staying roughly in. So I've taken most of the stretch out of that string. This way, you're taking the stretch out, and once it's tuned in a minute, it'll stay in tune. So there's A. Hold it and give it a stretch.
I think holding it is key for this. Because a lot of people just think you pull on the string.
You pull out the nut slot, you can put too much tension. I just kind of hold the string there. And you can buy these things now. It's like a plastic device that goes underneath, and you sort of rock it backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
But it's on this, you've got two hands, it's great. Always do this in the playing position if you can, because when it's lying on its back, all the weight of the strings, the way of the guitar, it's going to change. I'm just going to quickly check the action at the 12th. So it's from the bottom of the string to the top of the 12th fret, and it's just a hair over 2 millimeters on the bass side, and it's probably a hair under 2 millimeters on the treble side. Now, ideally, I want to come down to standard Fender will be 1.6, but we usually try and take it to 1.5 is a good height for these guitars. You can go lower. Again, some people like a little higher action, heavier strings. If they've got heavier strings, obviously it makes get better tone. It's easier to bend when the strings are a little higher. I find, especially because I've got big fat fingers, that when the strings are too low, you can slip off them. So that's one of the reasons I have a 2 millimeter action. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to take the action down. So I'm going to adjust the saddle. I'm going to adjust the outside 2 to 1.5 mil, and then bring the rest to match the radius, which I'll show you in a minute. So we know from the last time that I measured the radius as 12 inch. So I'm going to take the action down to 1.5 mil. So I'm just going to adjust the saddle screws, or grub screws. Just take it down and check it. Still a bit more.
And you can do that with a super cheap Allen key. You can get from anywhere.
And depending on the guitar, because they range from sort of 1.2, 1.5, some imperial, some metric. So obviously you just need to check the spec of the guitar. So usually the information will be available somewhere online from the manufacturer to say what size the grub screws are, or you just end up having like 45,000 Allen keys to make sure you got enough. So just adjusted this down now to 1.5 millimeters. So I know the outside 2 strings are correct for what we want. So now I'm going to go back to my gauge, little under saddle radius gauge, and I know that these are all going to be a little bit high now because I haven't adjusted them. So the outside ones are muted. So that one's muted completely. That one's got a little bit of a buzz, but I'm going to take it down so it mutes it, and then I'll know it's resting on the bottom of the. That note is clear, so again I'll just adjust the saddle down so it mutes a little bit more.
That's a really good tip.
So if you can hear the note clearly or just a bit of buzz, take it down so it kills it, and then you know it's touching the. That one still needs to come down a bit more, and then I can tweak them from there. The other thing, of course, that there's other ways. If you haven't got an under saddle, you can always measure. If you've got something like this or a pick or whatever, it's a couple of millimeters thick, I can look at that and say, okay, that's 1.5. I can move that away. That's 1.5. That's 1.5. That's 1.5. That's 1.5. And that's all. So I know I've adjusted these correctly, so you can do it that way. I also like to look down then, and they look a bit wonky. This is where my OCD kicks in, but also I want them straight. So I'm just going to take one side down, and you'll see it push over a bit as you adjust one of these screws. Sometimes it can push. See the saddle goes left or right.
Oh yeah.
So again, it's important just to have both feet, because sometimes you get one foot adjusted and one's not quite making contact, and that'll rattle and buzz, and people wondering where the buzz is coming from. So you're just best rocking around a bit until you know you've got contact. So I'm looking across, that looks pretty good.
And both of the set screws should be adjusted equally. That's the main thing, isn't it? So it's not too tilted.
They sometimes you'll get a slight radius in them, but a lot of people you see people adjust one leg really short and one long, and they have the saddle at this sort of angle. But then the string just leans that way, and it'll buzz on the edge and stuff. So you get the radius by the height rather than angling the saddle so much. Where you can't do this is some people, if they want, say for example, they wanted a 2mm on the bass side down to 1.5, so you've got an offset. Instead of it being like that, it'd be like that, exaggerated. Then you couldn't do it 1.5 all the way across. Yeah. Then you really need an under saddle gauge, or be able to just go, well, that's 2, that's a bit less than 2, that's 1.75, that's 1.7. You could do it.
Or I sometimes find myself just getting it correct, like you've done it, and then just making very finite adjustments, like just playing adjustments.
Well, sometimes, the worst thing about it, if the height of the string is slightly too high, slightly too low, if you get people playing sweep picking or playing across, if you've got a string that's lower or higher, it'll stick out and it'll feel weird. So the other thing, of course, you can do is just sight straight down the guitar and see if any of the strings look a little higher than the others, because you want that to follow the radius nicely and nothing sticking up or down.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you got value out of this video, I would love it if you'd like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell icon, and if you want to win this guitar, I'd urge you to go and check out the first video in the series where all the information is on there, and also go and follow me over on Instagram at Scott Poley Music. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.